on journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live, Friday, August 7th, 2020. Hope everyone's having a nice week, nice weekend plans, as best as you could have during a deadly pandemic with no sign of ending. Looks like a small, intimate gathering today on YouTube. Isn't that interesting? When your subscribers go up, somehow the live audience goes down. Shocking. Just shocking. So this is Status Quo right here in the United Corporations of America. And boy, I'm going to try not to go ballistic because I live in an apartment, meaning other people are around. So I can't go full on ballistic. Oh, turn the gain down. Let me know if that's okay. But the level of greed, selfishness, evil, sheer piggishness that I am going to show you in this broadcast this afternoon really is something that, I mean, I've seen it before, but to be able to just show you and visualize, this is beyond greed, what I'm about to show you. This is beyond the economic Hunger Games, what I'm about to show you. This is plutocrats and the bosses of the United Corporations of America essentially enjoying throwing you off the cliff as they hoard champagne and caviar. So what I'm about to show you folks, make no mistake, you better not be, what do they say, full stomach or empty stomach? I hope you're not on an empty stomach. Let me know how the mic is, Jen, if it's okay. 1, 2, 1, 2. I think the mic is okay, but what do I know? Got 100 people watching, so make sure you press the like button. I think there's a bunch of live streams on right now, competing with Status Quo. So please, please press that like button. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this very live stream. For the folks that are here, because apparently there's some stragglers watching some other shows, please, 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 remember, we could only grow based on you. Press that like button. Join our text list. If you haven't yet, you're not getting the text messages when we're live. So text COUP to 370370. That's COUP to 370370. Yes, engagement super chats are still welcome. So you're welcome to send me engagement super chats. If you can't send money, you know, we'll just take nice wishes. Appreciate all the kind words we've gotten. Also, if you don't know, I mean, these Status Quo masks are the hottest item out there. They're going like hotcakes. So if you don't have your Status Quo mask, you're not going to look good if you go out. Obviously, it's a pandemic. We want you to be safe. To be clear, these are not PPE, not CDC approved masks. They're simply to cover your nose and face. But you could go get the Status Quo mask right now. It's a good gift for yourself, your loved ones, an animal if you want to be extra careful. Get those Status Quo masks, and once yours arrives, please email us pictures of you with the Status Quo masks to info@statusquo.com. That's info@statusquo.com. We'll talk about the masks a little bit later, but Jen just put the link to get the mask right there in the super chat. It is indeed a super chat. And I kindly ask, I know I'm asking a lot here, that whatever your desire is, if you can leave a contribution today, don't forget, we still very much have our GoFundMe going. We're less than, I think, can I do math? What is that? Less than $8,000 to go in the GoFundMe. Right now, almost at $113,000 raised. All of this GoFundMe contributions is very, very helpful. It's giving us some padding since we've lost a lot of Status Quo members during this pandemic, people having to cancel, unfortunately, due to losing their jobs, all of that. So please, 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 if you can't become a member, but you can contribute, please drop some bucks in the GoFundMe or the super chat. Oh, you say Kim Iverson has 1,600 people watching? Well, I'm not a fan of her, so fuck her. I don't care. Excuse my French, not a fan of her. So to the people watching her, I don't care. So 150 people watching right now. I want to show you what to me is just a case study of what the United Corporations of America really is. And what that is essentially the longest running bank robbery in the history of possible human history, with the thieves being a revolving door of politicians, bankers, lobbyists, corporate CEOs, media hosts and executives, and now Mr. Wonderful, I think they call him. Sorry if you like Shark Tank. I like it too. But this man, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, what I have uncovered here, which wasn't hard, it just required Googling and watching a couple horrendous clips, is the definition of I got mine, good luck to you and yours. So let me start with where we're at right now, before we get to Mr. Wonderful, as they call him. Jobs report comes out today. 1.8 million jobs added in July, still down 13 million jobs during the pandemic. I believe we're down far more than 13 million jobs. I think the jobs report is not the most dependable tool of what the actual economic picture is. I would say over 50 million people have filed for jobless claims. Over 30. When I go to buy a mask, it shows a price with VAT tax. Is there a way to get it charged USD and US tax? Thanks, Donna. Email us you just emailed us, so Jen or I will get back to you. I don't know about a VAT tax. That might just be a Teespring thing, but we'll get back to you on that. So basically, 1.8 million jobs on paper looks good, but 4.8 million jobs were created the last month. And now, as I showed you yesterday, we have permanent job loss stepping in. By the way, not seeing any super chat love yet, so feel free. I think the window for engagement super chats is still very, very much open. So, third straight month of improvement after the spring lockdown that decimated the labor market. The unemployment rate fell to 10.2%. Again, if you look at real unemployment, probably closer to 14, 15%. But The unemployment rate fell in all demographic groups. The rate remains by far the highest for black workers at 14.6%, which is concerning. I think to me, the main takeaway from this is July's jobs report. And a lot of this job growth came because a lot of states, quote unquote, reopened their economies too quickly and have now had to start peeling back on that reopening. So I think now that a lot of states, including hot zones like Arizona, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, California, have basically had to have all but full lockdowns again, I think you're going to see very, very inconsistent job reports. But the bottom line is the unemployment rate is at over 10%. The real unemployment rate closer to 14, 15%. The eviction moratorium still has passed with no extension. The unemployment expansion, 600 hours a week, gone. Latest talks, Pelosi, Mnuchin, Mark Meadows, Schumer, they all met today for the 11th time. Nothing. No agreement. Sounds like the Democrats are willing to give the farm away again. Nancy Pelosi said we're willing to go from our demand of $3.4 trillion bill down to $2 trillion. So again, when they have all the leverage in the world, they are moving over to the Republican side. This is the Democrats. So there's no agreement. We're now heading into the second week where people who were basically depending on that $600 a week having nothing. They only have whatever their state unemployment is giving them, not the additional $600 a week. And also facing landlords now with full reign to evict them during a still deadly, deadly, deadly pandemic. Thank you, William Johnson, $5. Already ordered my mask. Can't wait to infect everyone with the status quo fandom. William, I love that. I'm going to steal that, actually. You had me a little worried with infect, but then the rest of it was good. Keep those super chats coming. So this is the situation we're in. And remember to press that like button. 180 people watching, 134 likes. Thumbs up button right under the live stream. JM004091, $5. First super chat ever, but I honestly love that you guys exist. Journalism school dropout, people like you are heroes to me. You know what? I'm very glad I didn't go to journalism school, and I'm glad you dropped out, because they're a bunch of old, corrupt dinosaurs in journalism school that teach you to stand like a neutral robot, say, this side says this, that side says this, we're neutral, you fucking figure out the truth. That's not journalism, and you wait till I get a journalism professor job one day. It's going to happen. So now you have the backdrop of what's going on here. And thank you, by the way, we got a $100 donation into GoFundMe a couple hours ago. Anonymous. I don't know who that is, but thank you. And keep those GoFundMes coming too. So, no agreement. People hanging off the economic cliff, as Colin Tooley has showed you. And you have this letter from CEOs to Congress. A lot more small businesses will fail without new aid. So, top executives of more than 100 companies, including Starbucks, Microsoft, and MasterCard, and trade groups are now calling on Congress to backstop small businesses facing economic calamity. In a letter dated Monday and addressed to congressional leaders of both parties, the executives painted a dire picture: mass business closures as coronavirus cases surge and the recession deepens. The effort, spearheaded by former Starbucks executive Howard Schultz, calls for federally guaranteed loans to last into 2021, flexibility in how that money is put to use, and at least partial loan forgiveness for the hardest hit companies. It also said, quote, funds must flow to all small businesses in need, particularly those run by people of color. Okay. In spirit, I agree with this letter. I think we need to see who this money would be going to. Who would this money be going to? Because we know a lot of small businesses, a lot of money as part of the PPP program that was supposed to go to small businesses ended up going to titans of the United Corporations of America that did not need the money. But in principle, I do agree that we need more money for small businesses. Anecdotally, I can tell you, my parents own a small mom and pop retail store. a jewelry store, they're suffering. And a lot of other actual small businesses that have less than 50 employees, my parents probably have 5 or 6, are literally hanging off a cliff. Small businesses actually are the lifeblood of America. But the PPP program got, as usual, hijacked so that corporate Goliaths and major companies that could afford to take a hit, they got money, including, remember, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats put in their HEROES Act a provision that would allow PPP small business loans to go to K Street lobbyists. How's that for Party of the Working People? So let's move on to Shark Tank entrepreneur Kevin O'Leary. If you watch Shark Tank, he's the bald guy. He's actually Canadian, but he has major investments in American companies, other international companies. He ran for a position in Canada as a conservative. He lost. Let's take a look at Mr. Wonderful here. In April, what was Mr. Wonderful's position on the PPP program and small businesses getting PPP loans?
And it's always good to see you, Mr. Wonderful. Trying to get your sense of the morality of taking the money. That's really the question this morning, especially for companies that may not need it in the moment today, but maybe they think they need it later. Sort of, how do you think about that?
Well, I listened to Mark's comments. You know, I have a lot of respect for Mark. We've been working together for a decade, even longer, and we never agree on anything, and we don't agree on this either. You have a fiduciary responsibility when the government lays out a program to use it, because you have no idea how long this pandemic is going to go for, when or if there'll be therapeutics or a vaccine. You just don't know. And to say that you can give to a franchisee that has less than 500 or whatever the employee count is, and not make sure the brain of the franchise business is kept intact, that's the HQ, makes no sense to me whatsoever.
So let me ask you a question. You have lots of different companies, and I wonder how many of them are trying to take the money, and how many of them call you and say, hey, Kevin, you got a lot of money. Can you help me? I'd prefer to take your money than take the government money.
Yes, all of that's happening. First of all, the government money, and you've got to understand the unintended consequence of what that bill said. When it was signed a couple of Fridays ago when we read it, it was clear to me that the government asked you to take a snapshot of your payroll Feb 15th and another snapshot of your payroll on June 30. And if they're both the same or the June 30 number's higher, that loan can be forgiven. It's free helicopter money. So that changed the entire behavior of millions of businesses that were applying for it. And let me tell you the unintended consequence, which I find fascinating. We can't finance the payrolls of these companies during the period we're waiting for the actual check to come, because we don't know if it's 5 or 6 or 8 weeks. We have no idea. So who's going to pay? The landlord. You have no idea how many conversations.
So, if you're paying attention at home, and thank you very much for the super chat. Chris Garrett, $5. Congrats, Anats. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. D. Monch, $4.99. Why do we still live here? Notice how everyone blames Trump for the terrible response, but doesn't credit Medicare for all in other countries. Totally agree. Totally agree. Keep those super chats coming if you can. So, Mr. Wonderful, this Shark Tank entrepreneur, in April, when all of this was starting, says companies have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to get that PPP money, that small business loan money. When the CNBC anchor said to him, are you a multimillionaire with a huge portfolio of companies you invest in? Are you trying to get that PPP money? Absolutely, he said. He said, absolutely I am. And, by the way, other small business owners are asking me to lend them money. So, back in April, when this pandemic hit, he said, you have a fiduciary duty as any company to your shareholders to get government money. If the government wants to hand out money to you as a loan, that many of these PPP loans actually, through whatever the arithmetic and accounting is, became forgivable, where they weren't actual loans, they were just grants that you don't have to pay back. He basically says, let me just translate what fiduciary duty means. I have a responsibility as a corporate scumbag to try and get the free money for my shareholders. That's what he's saying. Okay? In April. That's what he said. Let's fast forward now. And keep pressing that like button. 240 people watching. 174 of you have pressed that like button. Can I get more? Please press that like button and share this live stream. Now let's take a look at Mr. Wonderful a couple months after he said, yeah, small businesses, this PPP program is necessary. Small businesses need loans from the government. It would be irresponsible if you're a small business or even a corporation to not try and get that money, even if you don't need it. That's what he said in April. Let's look at him yesterday on CNBC, responding to Howard Schultz, the former Starbucks CEO, and other CEOs signing a letter saying the government needs to do more for small businesses.
It's no longer a crisis. This is a 5-alarm emergency in which I believe, and I think the 100 CEOs who signed this letter in support of the Restart Act believes that all roads should lead to small business relief in any stimulus package that Congress approves.
Joining us right now to talk more about this is Operation Hope Chairman and CEO John Hope Bryant, and Kevin O'Leary, Chairman at O-Shares ETFs, Shark Tank co-host, as you know, and a CNBC contributor. Guys, Congress has not come any closer, and we had this conversation that we started last week between the two of you. I'm not sure the two of you are going to come any closer on this point. But Kevin, I want to start with you since you got cut off last time. In terms of what's being proposed right now, in terms of what's being put out there, in terms of this plan to potentially make loans to small businesses that could be forgiven, what Howard Schultz was talking about, what do you think?
I totally disagree. I think, first of all, Howard is an advocate of small business, and I appreciate that. And he's a rock star amongst the entrepreneurial community for caring about employees. It's always been part of his mantra and what he did in building Starbucks. But when we started this PPP program months and months and months ago, there was a lot we didn't know that we know now. And the American economy is going through a revolution, a digital transformation. There are going to be many, many winners and many, many losers. And at the end of the day, the one thing John and I can agree on is during this transition, we're going to displace a lot of employees, a lot of workers. We should support them, but let the actual change, this dynamic change occur, happen on its own and let the market be the market. I am, as you know, a huge advocate of small business. I have over 50 companies, small businesses that are private, I've invested in. At least 20 to 25% of them are going to fail because the world has changed on them. Consumers have changed. The way they buy things have changed. Where they go has changed. And we don't yet know what the world looks like on the other side of this pandemic. Assuming it's going back to what it was is an incorrect assumption because many things are going to be more efficient. And we can't pick the winners and losers anymore. That's what's changed in my mind over the last 5 months. I am a huge advocate for giving somewhere between $400 and $450 to employees, extending the unemployment, and then letting the market do price discovery on what it should fund and what it shouldn't. There's so many businesses that got money in the first PPP that shouldn't have got it at all because they are essentially zombie companies. They will never be successful. They will never be liquid. The world has changed on them. Why should I, as a taxpayer, fund that? Why not let the private markets come and support those that deserve it and let the others die as they do and should, because those assets will go through bankruptcy and be redeployed efficiently. I don't want to spend any more money guessing on winners and losers because Congress can't. There's nobody that can. Only the market can. And John knows that, and he has to admit that no one can pick winners and losers. Why should taxpayers be forced into these crammed down fundings? Makes no sense at all to me. And I'm an advocate for small business.
Mm-hmm. John, your response?
I'm speechless. First of all, I have enormous respect for Kevin and what he's accomplished. I find it interesting, I wasn't going to mention it, but 10% of the businesses that he started got PPP. I mean, 5 of his own companies 3 months ago got PPP loans. You can't just say we want affirmative action for rich people and everybody else is on your own. That is not the way it works. You can't. We are rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic here. The ship is sinking, and we're all picking drapes. The reality is that even the Starbucks CEO and the 100 CEOs that went with him have the right message. That's the Woodruff era CEO message of the 60s that I mentioned, where Coca-Cola leaned in to tell the Atlanta business community to do the right thing when they didn't want to honor Dr. King. Atlanta is now the biggest economy in the South, the only international city in the South. The U.S. came out of World War II, Becky, because of the
So let's be clear here. Let's be clear. Again, this is a Canadian, by the way. Kevin O'Leary is a Canadian investor. He has companies in America, has companies in other countries. He got his start, some tech software company he hit it big with. In April, when this started, Kevin O'Leary said, you as a small business owner or a corporate CEO have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to get that government money. Okay? Then, him, a filthy rich multimillionaire who, frankly, can afford to have many of the companies he owns or invests in to go belly up. He says 20% of his companies might go belly up. Honestly, it won't even affect his bottom line that much. He's so filthy rich. After he got, 10 of his companies got PPP, small business loans. Again, this is a filthy rich man. His companies didn't need PPP, small business loan money. He got it. What did he call that? Government picking winners and losers? No. The government. We have to stop allowing the government to pick winners and losers after they gave me my money. After I got my money from the government and basically stole that money that should have went to an actual small business struggling. After I was rewarded by the government as a winner, the government chose me, Kevin O'Leary, a multimillionaire, as a winner. I'm good. Yeah, 20% of my businesses will go out. But the core ones that I requested PPP money, the real money makers, are good because we got that extra padding we didn't need. So, to the barber shops that got screwed and couldn't get that small business money because it went to Kevin O'Leary, to the small restaurant that couldn't get that PPP money, small sports arena, small hardware store, small whatever it was, that didn't get that money because the money went to Kevin O'Leary, a filthy multimillionaire who didn't need it. After he got the money, he has the audacity to go on CNBC and press that like button. Almost 300 people watching, 209 of you have pressed the thumbs up. Keep those super chats coming. I'll read the ones I missed in a little bit. This man has the audacity to go on national television and say, no, the government needs to stop picking winners and losers. You know, now we've learned things months in, and the PPP program needs to cease to exist. These small businesses, sorry, you lost the pandemic lottery, and you got to go out of business. The government can't help you. I say the economic Hunger Games, and I mean it. Then look at what he said here last week.
Living with that for decades, but when you think of the incremental dollar, Judge, I have to put money to work today. I have to put money to work tomorrow. I have a lot of cash sitting around because I've been exiting other sectors. Where do I put it? I'm putting it back into Microsoft, putting it back into Facebook. Why? That's what's working. Not just for the momentum, if you want to invest on that basis. I don't. That's where money is being spent in this digital pivot. You know, I can now say I've got enough focus now after all these months, 20% of my small private portfolio is going to fail. It's going to fail. They're going to zero. They are in restaurants. They are in sports entertainment. They're anything doing, movie theaters, all that stuff, gyms, going to zero. I don't want to support them anymore, and I don't think the government should either. Let those guys die. They have to die because the consumer is moving into a different direction. But where the consumer is going is being empowered by the Facebooks, by the Microsofts, by all of these tech companies. Amazon, are you kidding? That's a must-have for any small business, 40% of their sales. So that trend remains intact. What's different from what we saw in March is I now know who the losers are, and the market does too.
You know who the losers are? I guarantee you, if I dug in hard enough, there is at least one or two of Kevin O'Leary's small businesses that he is acting like he's so virtuous, let him fail, that are failing, are going to fail, in large part because they couldn't get that PPP money that he fucking stole from them. You see how that works? This Neanderthal, this filthy shark, literally a shark, a deadly one, stole money from small businesses, got that money from the United Corporations of America, the federal government, that he didn't need. He literally stole money from, let's say, companies that were on Shark Tank that he invested in. Many of those companies are your literal small mom and pop business. I've seen, children on Shark Tank coming up with great ideas. They probably, indirectly or directly, couldn't get PPP money because a lot of that money, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, was being diverted to corporate America and plutocrats who don't need it, like Kevin O'Leary. And then he has the audacity to say, listen, I'm putting my money back into Facebook and Amazon and this and that. Oh, you mean the money you stole from the government? The PPP money that you got? Because you do like the government picking winners and losers, as long as it's you they're picking. Once you get chosen, it's like in gym class, you remember? When there's like two captains and they go through picking each person and you're freaking out because you're like not getting chosen and you might be the last one and being embarrassed. Might have happened to me once or twice. He's cool as long as he's chosen first. Whatever happens to the other students, if they don't get chosen, that's fine. Thank you for the super chat. Nambians, $10. Socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for everyone else. We need a revolution in this country. I think at this point, it's not if, it's when the general strike is coming. I tweeted that earlier. Sassy Girl, $5. Chris Hedges once eviscerated Kevin O'Leary on live TV in Canada. It was amazing. Oh, I'd love to see that. Gino, fast, $4.99, and we're back for some status quo. Good to have you back, Gino. So it actually gets better. It gets better now. Let's give it a little more. This is yesterday.
The government and its stimulus, which went to the private sector, which created the Marshall Plan, which allowed George Marshall, which allows us to rebuild Europe, which is now a huge trading partner, and helped us to aid, the average white middle-class man to get as much education as he could shove down his throat, an apprenticeship for a new job, that's government support, and a mortgage for a new home. That was the birth of the middle class. And that made us a global leader in the world. So yes, the private sector should lead, and the private sector should pick winners. But at the moment, we all need a little bit of a rich uncle to help us through this. And for most on Wall Street, it's the Fed window. Okay, so we can't just abandon the middle class businesses employing half of this country. half of this country, and expect this story to come out well, because those businesses and the average person is driving the economy, which is driving big business. We're all in this thing together.
Hey, John, the couple of things I will say is Kevin mentioned that he thinks a quarter of the companies that he has, the small businesses, will probably go under. So he's not advocating for that. And he is advocating for making sure that there are still an extension of the unemployment benefits to make sure that that gets through to the people.
What I love the most about this, and I don't know if this is still the case, I believe Shark Tank reruns air on CNBC, I think. So that anchor, instead of challenging this Neanderthal, well, you seem to be having a very vastly different tune, Kevin. At first, you said absolutely, from small businesses to big white-collar CEOs. They should advocate. It's their fiduciary duty to get that government money. But now you're saying not. In between that, 10% of your companies got that PPP money. Maybe challenge him on that? Oh no. This CNBC anchor, she's there to defend him and say, well, he's not advocating for other people, working people, not to get unemployment. He's just talking about cutting it from $600 a week down to $400 a week. And, so he's not a total villain. He still wants unemployed people to get their unemployment. But for small business owners and the people they employ, you're on your own. Interesting that the CNBC anchor didn't press him on his total evolution on the small business PPP program after he got his. I wonder if that has anything to do with Shark Tank reruns on CNBC, which I believe still air on CNBC. But it gets better. It really, really gets better. So if you're not angry enough, because I'm fuming at this, 310 people watching, 250 likes. Can I get another 75 likes? Come at me, baby. Whoa! Kevin O'Leary, $50. So I'm bashing Kevin O'Leary for at least 25 minutes, and he just left $50. Kevin O'Leary, who just left $50, I accept your money, and what I'm going to do with that $50, Kevin O'Leary, is I am going to possibly spend even more time investigating you, because I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg on you, Kevin O'Leary, and that no journalist has ever really investigated you. Because, oh, what the heck, he's that douchebag from Shark Tank, but he's entertaining as a douchebag. So I'm going to spend that $50 on investigating you further. Thank you, Anonymous, $20 in the GoFundMe. Hey, is it possible or not, on our engagement week, that we could get to $113,000 raised in this GoFundMe before I'm done with this rant? Yeah. By my math, that would be $249 away. $249 away from $113,000. So I don't want to be picking winners and losers here, but if there's a winner that wants to leave $249, have at it. Of course, we get it if you can't. Tough economic times. All the GoFundMe donations are appreciated. But it gets worse. It gets worse. And thank you. Keep those GoFundMes coming. Keep the Super Chats coming. Really appreciate it. So let's take a look at some more from Mr. Wonderful.
I have no problem with helping people. I just don't want to breed mediocrity and inefficiency into an economy that can be extremely dynamic if allowed to go and get price discovery on its own. The American economy is an extremely powerful beast, and it has to be let to work and figure out on its own what should work and what shouldn't. Let me give you an example. Let's make it easy for people to understand. Let's say a theater chain, a movie theater chain, which employs maybe 1,000 people, is asking for $4 or $5 million to stay open because they want to wait until there's a therapeutic or a vaccine so people will gather back in theaters. What if after 6 months, people have figured out they'd rather watch James Bond on their home screen or their tablet, and they don't want to go to theaters anymore? Why should I, as a taxpayer, have to decide whether that theater chain should stay in business or not? Why not let the market redeploy those buildings after bankruptcy into maybe data centers, maybe into cloud kitchens, maybe into pick and pack robotic inventory locations that the economy actually needs. It may never need those theater seats anymore. The world has changed, John. You got to admit that. Let's support the 1,000 employees during this transition and help them find jobs in the pick and pack robotic facility or the cloud kitchen or whatever the economy is going to do. It's digitizing, but it sickens me to see money given to companies that are the walking dead.
Right.
When you know if we just let the price discovery occur, we'll come out of this mess with a far more efficient and a more dynamic and very profitable economy. The government can't choose winners. They can't choose winners.
I want to jump in and ask Kevin another question, but John, I know you got a response.
Yeah, so I think we're having two different conversations. I really do understand that now. Kevin's having a conversation about the investor economy. And I have a lot of wealthy friends who told me they got paid PPP, and they really shouldn't have. Their companies were doing okay, and they got more padding for their balance sheet to get through this. I'm talking about the barbershop owner. I'm talking about the daycare who's got 3 employees who had 14 days of cash before this thing even hit. They were in a crisis before the crisis ever hit. When mainstream America has a headache, black folks have pneumonia, but we're all sick. I'm talking about 96% of all black businesses that don't have an employee, Kevin. I'm talking about the vast majority of businesses in this country who have 1 to 4, 1 to 100 employees who had 14 to 21 days of cash before this hit. You've got to back them. You've got to support them. That is the individual you're talking about. It's just an individual with a business name attached to it.
The audacity of this man, you gotta respect it. He has no shame. And he's lucky that he was on CNBC, because I would eviscerate him. I would eviscerate this man. He says, why should I, as a taxpayer, have to bail out these companies? Why should taxpayers have to bail out these companies like the movie theater company? That movie theater company that he described, the one actually being responsible, the one choosing not to have people congregate in close quarters during a deadly pandemic and foregoing their profit or possibly their even survival. In fairness, a lot of them have no choice. Their states won't allow them to reopen. But what he just described is why should the taxpayer have to float the movie theater being responsible and not congregating people during a deadly pandemic? When, let them go. And they could just, their workers could switch to robotics or some cloud fucking thing he was talking about. I don't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's the same thing as Obama saying, we need to retrain workers for the jobs of tomorrow. It all is globalization, mumbo jumbo, and means nothing. Retraining workers is a bunch of bullshit. It's been the line from neoliberals for the last 30 years. You can't retrain people for jobs that don't exist. Guess what? I interviewed, I think it was when I was at the Young Turks, I did a disappearing middle class tour. I interviewed the labor head of a local AFL-CIO in Pennsylvania. And you know what? He said, we retrained. This was the steel industry. We retrained our workers. And once they got retrained, guess what? There were no jobs for them. But Kevin O'Leary, after he got his PPP loan, again, a multi-millionaire, that other fellow, I forget the other guest's name, who was saying, I have a lot of friends that got that PPP money, which if I read in between the lines, he was talking about Kevin, saying who didn't need it, who just used the money to pad their stats. Kevin O'Leary says, why should taxpayers be bailing out that movie theater? Let the free market do its thing. Well, guess what, Kevin? The taxpayers, i.e. me and you, even though that's also bullshit because really taxes don't pay for all these things, modern monetary theory, but taxpayers didn't have a choice. For Kevin, who didn't need the PPP small loan small business loans. For Kevin, we taxpayers didn't have a choice. That decision was made for us by the United Corporations of America, who gave Kevin and other plutocrats like him huge amounts of money, basically free money. I mean, don't take it from me. This is CNBC reporting this. Here are the largest public companies taking payroll loans meant for small businesses. Hundreds of millions of dollars of Paycheck Protection Program funds have been claimed by large, publicly traded companies. In fact, the U.S. government has allocated at least $243.4 million of the total $349 billion to publicly traded companies, according to Morgan Stanley. Several of those companies have market values well in excess of $100 million, including DMC Global, Wave Life Sciences, and Fiesta Restaurant Group. Whatever that means. In fact, the U.S. government has allocated at least $243.4 million of the total $349 billion to these publicly traded companies. The PPP was designed for the nation's smallest mom and pop shops to keep employees on payroll. So in fairness to Kevin, he wasn't the only one looting the Treasury and getting huge corporate welfare, while then going on CNBC simultaneously and waxing poetic about the government not choosing winners and losers. It's not even hypocrisy. It's something beyond hypocrisy. And yes, subscribe to Status Coup if you have not. We are growing. We're at 87,400 something subscribers. So if you're new here, press that subscribe button. Click all notifications. It's not a guarantee that they'll actually notify you, which is why, be like every other cool kid in class, join our text list. Text COUP to 370-370 right now. Text COUP to 370-370 so you'll get added to our text list. We'll only text you when we're live. We don't text you when we're hungry, when we're depressed, when we're going to the bathroom, only when we're live. So, you ready for the triumphant finish here? Here's the triumphant finish. Also has to do with Bernie Sanders.
So we are not in disagreement about the investor economy. That is emotionally detached. Let the capital find its own level. I get it. I'm talking about the heart of this country. And if we lose the heart of this country, we lose this country. We're not a country, Kevin. We're an idea. And we got to back that idea with everything we've got, because we need that confidence to pull through the underside so that we can create new Starbucks and new Microsofts and new Apples and new yous and new me.
Hey, Kevin, let me ask you this. We were talking the last hour. Bernie Sanders has a new plan today to tax billionaires that he argues have benefited during this period. People of means, people who had wealth before and had money in the market and owned assets. In many cases, if you were an Amazon shareholder, for example, or Jeff Bezos, you were a beneficiary in part because the government, by the way, helped you, oftentimes at the expense of small businesses. Do you think that there should be higher taxes on the wealthy to pay for all of this, to pay for the unemployment insurance of the people who are ultimately actually going to be buying your products or not? There's been a remarkable corporate socialism on one end going on, and there's a big push to spend even more money, but nobody's talking about who should pay for it.
Yeah, listen, Andrew, you've stayed on this theme throughout this entire pandemic. There's always attempts to change capitalism in times of stress. There's a better way to go. There's a different system. That's never been the case in 200 years. Now, if you want to tax the rich into oblivion, that's fine. What will happen is they will go and pursue other opportunities somewhere else. It's a very competitive world out there. I'm not against taxing people, and I'm not against being taxed. But the point is we have to be competitive. We need a nation that can compete with everybody else, and specifically China and other Asian countries where taxes are lower and capital flows. America has always been the place to bring your idea and make it happen, not because it was the highest tax place, because it was the place where the market existed and entrepreneurs were celebrated and supported, and they created this economy. Now, I like Bernie Sanders, I like all of his ideas, but the market has made a decision. It said, look, at the end of the day, let America remain America as far as I'm concerned. And by the way, Andrew, if you took all the money away from all the wealthy people, defining wealth any way you want, it doesn't solve the problem. They don't have enough money.
I don't want to take people's wealth. I'm just trying to figure out the balanced way to figure out a way to fund what's happened here. Because what we have done in the past 5 months is we completely socialized the losses. You as a taxpayer just said you don't want to pay more money to pick the winners and the losers, and we've profitized the gains. And therefore, we got to figure out sort of how to remanage that. Maybe.
Hey, can we, guys? We let Kevin get the first word. I want John to get a very quick last word before we go too. John, your thought on this? Very quickly.
I'm paying more taxes for internships for all, for apprenticeships for all, for financial literacy for education for all, for K through college education for all, for the retraining of workers for the.
If I ever run for office,
No, you're not.
which my fiance tells me I'm not allowed,
Forget it, though.
you want to know what I'm going to say? Trump wants to deport illegal immigrants, which I disagree with. Undocumented immigrants, excuse me. I say, in Kevin O'Leary's case, he can't be deported because he's Canadian. But for everybody else, I say, I do have a deportation plan, and it starts with people like Kevin O'Leary. He says, no, if you tax the rich, we're just going to go look for opportunities elsewhere. Good. Get the fuck out of this country so we could actually make it a country again. Because guess what? Here's the biggest lie of them all. They're not job creators. They're job destroyers. They're not the producers. They are the economic Hunger Games, and they're killing people. This idea, well, we're just going to take our ball and go home to Ireland or whatever other country we will change our corporate headquarters to. Good. Because guess what? The way we're doing things, allowing you to loot the country, Kevin O'Leary, and the rest of your ilk, that's what it's done. Do you see a problem in this chart? Productivity. Look at how, starting in the mid-70s, accelerated in the beginning of the 1980s. What happened at the beginning of the 1980s? Ronald Reagan, who MSNBC is now inviting every fucking adult who has teenagers, had Ronald Reagan posters. They're giving Nicole Wallace a 2-hour show now. MSNBC literally is the Lincoln Project. They've housed the entire Lincoln Project in their green rooms for the last 4 years. Steve Schmidt, Nicole Wallace. What honestly would be a good thing if we got rid of all these job producers, entrepreneurs, because they're not actually creating livable, working class, humane industries. And they don't believe in a free market. They believe in a fixed market, meaning they get theirs and good luck to you. And that's exactly what Kevin O'Leary did. He went on, as I've shown you for the last hour, I think I've been on this one story. He went on in April. He said, of course, I, Kevin O'Leary, and other plutocrats should try to raid the Treasury and get that PPP money meant for small mom and pop businesses. That's called theft, because we have a fiduciary duty to be greedy and try to get that free government money. And after I, Kevin O'Leary, for 10% of my businesses got that PPP money, and after I was able to pad it, as he said, by buying more shares in Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft, literally took money from the government to grease up his portfolio, then I could go on CNBC and say, yeah, it's over. Government needs to stop picking winners and losers. We got to end this PPP program, which, by the way, I don't even think the PPP program was the smartest thing to do in the first place. So don't think that by this, I'm talking about, I'm not a cheerleader for the PPP program. I think we should just do what Europe did and just have the government backstop and cover the payrolls of small businesses up to 80%. That way you don't have to give loans or grants or anything like that. Just have the government be the last resort, just like they were during the Great Depression, which we might be headed for. There's no need for a PPP program in the first place, which has been a headache, according to people like my parents and other people I've spoken with, trying to get those loans. This man is the face of not just pandemic greed, but the evil that has hijacked this country's government. I don't call it the United Corporations of America to make it a bumper sticker, but we should. Or make it into status quo t-shirts, we should. I say it because it's literally the truth. We don't live in a country. That other guest who said America is not a country, it's an idea, he had it half right. It's not a country. That man is despicable. And you want to know what else is despicable? That CNBC journalists sit there and present this man as some type of brilliant entrepreneur that we should watch and listen to his advice. Maybe he did some things. I don't know how he started his company. I'm sure he got plenty of government money then too. Elon Musk, another Neanderthal, who's talking about, no, we should stop, the government should stop giving people money. After he has gotten hundreds of millions of dollars in government subsidies for Tesla. This is the equivalent of bank robbers, literal bank robbers, let me get that graphic, basically being invited to present like the Nobel Peace Prize for, I don't know, financial ethics. And these anchors, they don't challenge him on the fact that he took the PPP money. What the fuck are you talking about? The government picking winners and losers. That's exactly how you profit. You were chosen as a winner. And by the way, if you want to turn this into politics, if Trump is reelected, these people will continue to run wild and run roughshod all over America. Trump's not a populist. He's a phony baloney. He's one of the bank robbers. And if Biden gets elected, well, is Biden going to do anything about Kevin O'Leary? Well, let's see what he told his donors recently. Quote, Biden to his donors at a recent digital fundraiser. Corporate America has to change its ways. It's not going to require legislation. I'm not proposing any. We've got to think about how we deal people back in. Oh, deal people back in. My father told me, Joey, a job is more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. Corporate America has to change its ways, I'm telling rich people as we inhale champagne virtually. It's not going to require legislation. I'm not proposing any. We've got to think about how we deal people back in. And just for you people in the back, by the way, and thank you for the GoFundMe, Seth Peterson, $35. We are now $214 away, $214 away from $113,000 raised. Oh, can we get $213? I'm schwitzing. This rant is reinvigorating me.
Ranting is good cardio.
370 people watching, by the way. Press that like button if you haven't. Did I miss some super chats? Seth Peterson, double whammy. GoFundMe and the super chat, $30. These people are despicable. Thanks for exposing these god-awful psychopaths. Honestly, I wish I could do more than just expose. But it starts with exposing. Colin's going to have his workout for him, trying to cut down this into one or two videos, because I've gone on for an hour about this asshole. But we need to make this viral, because this man is the face of greed, hypocrisy, and evil. Zato Chai Beat, £4.99. If America taxes their rich, every other country will follow. That's coming from a UK citizen. Where our rich use the same excuse. Yep. Nambians, $10. Progressive Bear Jew 2024. Let's end the bullshit. Love it. By the way, I'm not starting anything, but the door is not 100% closed on a run for elected office. In some future, the door is not 100% closed for a run for elected office. Not anytime soon, but maybe down the road. We'll see. So, just so you know, for my friends in Canada, you might know this, but I didn't know this. There have literally been campaigns in Canada to stop Kevin O'Leary. Here's Democracy Watch. Needs your support for a very important initiative, stopping Kevin O'Leary's lawsuit that is aimed at removing limits on political donations in Canada. This fucker filed a lawsuit to try and basically hijack Canada's government too. A self-proclaimed billionaire. Oh, excuse me, I was understating it. He's not a multimillionaire, he's a billionaire. O'Leary ran for the Conservative Party leadership in 2017 and spent $532,000 more than he raised in donations before he dropped out of the race when it became clear he wasn't going to win. He has tried raising money to pay off his debt, but he still owes $430,000. He wants to pay off that debt by having one of his businesses donate $430,000 to himself. But that is illegal because Canada limits political donations. Well, here in the United Corporations of America, he could probably get away with that. So Kevin O'Leary is challenging Canada's donation limit in court. If he wins, Canadian politics will return to the bad old days when wealthy people use money to buy influence over parties and candidates in leadership races and elections. Oh, I wish those were the good old days in America. It will also make Canada much more like the U.S., where 50% of senators and 35% of House politicians are millionaires because they are allowed to donate as much as they want to their own elected election campaigns, which gives them a big advantage in elections. And guess what, folks? If you don't know this, how did Nancy Pelosi become a congresswoman? Great reporting from the American Prospect recently. Nancy Pelosi was not involved in San Francisco politics. She wasn't an activist. She wasn't in anything. You know what she was? Not judging her marriage. Maybe she loved her husband. I don't know. But she married a rich guy or a very successful guy. And her and Paul Pelosi became the preeminent political fundraisers and donors in San Francisco. So Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi held fundraisers in their home for San Francisco's who's who of San Francisco politicians. So when the longtime Congresswoman of San Francisco, I forget her name, this was in the American Prospect's recent report, when she, I don't know what happened, if she was resigning or she got sick, whatever, who did she suggest to take over for her? Not a Cori Bush, who was an activist on the ground for years and just won a huge upset. I've reached out to her for an interview, by the way. Not an AOC, not any of these people. She recommended the Pelosi, who was showing San Francisco's Democratic Party the money for all those years. The chief fundraisers, not just in direct donations, but as somebody who raised a lot of money for candidates too. That's how Pelosi got her job in Congress. Why do I bring that up? Because that's basically who Kevin O'Leary is too. So when these people talk about the free market, complete bullshit, there is no such thing as a free market. When they talk about capitalism and the government picking winners and losers, the government can't pick winners and losers. You want to know why? Because the government's not picking. The government works for Kevin O'Leary. It's Kevin O'Leary and his ilk that are picking the winners of losers. They've bought the actual body, the government, and made them the puppets. It's just, it's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous and disgusting. Holy cow. I have an announcement to make. Anonymous, $214. Getting us to $113,000 raised.
You know, it's harder to clap with a ring.
Oh, it's harder to clap with a nice engagement ring? I'm sorry you're having that problem. I put a ring on her finger, now she can't clap as loud. We are now $7,000 to go in our GoFundMe. We're not raising the goal. We're keeping it at $120,000. Thank you to whomever Anonymous is. I'll be able to see who you are on our back end, and I'll thank you. Thank you. $7,000 to go. We really appreciate it. Over 1,600 people have donated to our GoFundMe. Thank you. So, before I go, if this rant wasn't enough to you, I now have an original report for you. If that wasn't enough, for those of you that remember, I was at the battle at Standing Rock, on and off for 6 months. I froze my Jewish little tushy off to show you what American fascism is. And this has been the court battle of all court battles. It's been going on for 4.5 years to shut down this pipeline. As I've told my audience all along, I don't know any judge in American history that has ruled to dig up a pipeline and shut it down after it's operational. But a few weeks ago, a judge ruled, finally, after 4 years, that Dakota Access Pipeline has to stop operation. This crude oil pipeline that is going underneath the longest river in America, that serves downstream 20 million people its drinking water, and going through the Standing Rock Sioux tribe's sacred land and jeopardizing their water, animals. You know the story. So a couple weeks ago, a judge ruled that the company that owns the Dakota Access Pipeline illegally formed it by not doing a proper environmental impact study. And until a proper environmental impact study is done, that Dakota Access Pipeline has to shut down operation, the oil must stop flowing, and they need to do an environmental impact study. At the time, I was optimistic. I joined everybody that was celebrating this major decision. Very, very rare that a judge rules in favor of a Native American tribe, much less shutting down an oil pipeline. However, on Wednesday, an appeals court not fully overturned it, but partially overturned it, saying that the Dakota Access Pipeline does not have to shut down its oil flow after all, and can continue operating while the Army Corps of Engineers puts together the proper environmental impact study. Meaning, on one end, they're saying it's still illegal what you did. It's still illegal that your permits are not valid because you didn't do the proper environmental impact study that you're supposed to do. But we're not gonna force the company to stop operations. So a little earlier, I interviewed Jan Hasselman. He's with Earth Justice. He's been the lead attorney for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe for 4 years, as this has been in and out of court. Here's my discussion with him on what this ruling means and where we go now on trying to stop DAPL. Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Jan Hasselman. You are the attorney for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. You've been representing them for years as the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline basically continues, seemingly never ending in court. A couple weeks ago, there was a major victory where a federal judge ruled that Energy Transfer Partners, the owner of Dakota Access Pipeline, had to basically shut it down, stop flowing the oil, that it had illegally operated without a proper environmental impact study. But an appeals court, it seems, has kind of pulled back that ruling. Can you kind of explain what happened on Wednesday in the appellate court?
Sure. It's a complicated ruling, and it's hard to explain without getting a little bit into the details. But one way of thinking about it is that the appeals court has moved the goalposts a little bit. It did not reverse the district court's shutdown order. It said that the district court needed to do a little more work. Basically, what happens from here is that the appeals court affirmed that the pipeline does not have a valid permit, that the appeals will go ahead on the environmental impact study. It did forecast that the company and the government is not likely to prevail in that appeal. So that portion of the ruling we feel very good about. With respect to shutting down the pipeline, what the appellate court said is that because the pipeline doesn't have a permit, it goes to the Army Corps in the first instance to say what they're going to do about this pipeline that's essentially operating illegally on federal land and in violation of federal law. If they don't shut it down, which we assume is going to be the answer in this administration, then the district court will have another bite at the apple. So the fight continues. This was not a major setback. This is it just means that there's more work for the lawyers.
And how does an appellate court, on one hand, rule the pipeline never had the proper permits, which, like you said, would make it illegal, but on the other end, say it could keep operating while it comes up with the proper justification? I don't understand that. If they're saying it doesn't have the proper permits, how does it continue operating?
Yeah, well, you and many other people are right to find that problematic. Essentially, what the status of the pipeline is, it doesn't have the requisite paperwork, and we have to go through some more steps before it's shut off. Now, that might happen through the judicial process, political process. We're a couple months out from an election. Hopefully in January we'll be in a different place where a different administration can treat this in a rational way.
And just to remind viewers, basically, my recollection is for a pipeline of this size and structure, it would have had to have an environmental impact statement. But basically, the company that owns the pipeline did this hodgepodge, making it seem like it was a bunch of separate pipelines rather than one continuous long pipeline, and that way they got around of doing the environmental impact study in the first place. Is that accurate?
That's right, but that is the way that the Army Corps of Engineers does its rules. It likes to look at pipelines as hundreds of completely independent and unrelated tiny little environmental impacts that avoid that kind of comprehensive environmental review. That is a major problem that needs to be fixed in the next administration.
And can you kind of talk about, obviously, a couple of years ago, the report said that the pipeline had spilled already at least 5 times. North Dakota, like Texas, pretty lax in their reporting of spills. So it's fairly unknown. You could have major spills, but you could also have leaks that nobody knows about. What do we know as far as years later? The pipeline's been operational for several years. What is the known damage or spills that have occurred with Dakota Access Pipeline?
Well, you're absolutely right. There isn't any truly foolproof way to know what's been going on, particularly when we think about the segment of the pipeline that goes underneath the Missouri River. That part of the pipeline is buried fairly deep beneath the river. If there is a spill or a leak in that area, it would take a long time to show up. Because the oil would have to move through all the soil, and by that time, it would be a catastrophe. There'd be no way to ameliorate it. What we do know is that Energy Transfer Partners in Sunoco, who own this pipeline, have the worst record in the industry for safety, for compliance. They have a lax culture. They're under criminal investigation in Pennsylvania. They've had pipelines shut down in different states. These are not people you want running a pipeline when the consequences are so high. And that was, in fact, a major part of the court case when the district court found that the Army Corps failed to consider this company's abysmal safety record in signing off on this permit.
And talking about the Army Corps, I mean, the bottom line is the original approval didn't happen under Trump. So it's kind of like the Army Corps and this whole process, it's kind of been screwy across different administrations, Democrats and Republicans. So do you have hope that you had mentioned the political winds might be changing? If it's a new administration, Biden, hopefully the EPA and Army Corps and other things have more integrity, that they would basically overhaul the process to actually, I don't know, call me radical, make sure you do these types of studies before the pipe is dug, which and a proper environmental impact study, by my understanding, could take as long as, 18 months.
Look, we don't take anything for granted, but yeah, we are optimistic that there's going to be some changes. We had 40 members of Congress sign on to a brief in the district court urging the court to shut down the pipeline. Some of the people that signed on to that brief, like Senator Warren and Senator Harris, are on the short lists to be Biden's VP. So there's going to be a robust conversation in the next administration about what to do about this pipeline. And it is worth remembering, I mean, you're absolutely right that the original permits were issued under the Obama administration. But we need to remember at the end of 2016, the Army Corps denied the permit and said it was going to do the full environmental impact study, look at alternative route configurations, fully assess the impacts on the tribe's treaty rights. Of course, Trump overrode that on his second full day in the office.
Right. And we should also add, obviously, you're representing Standing Rock Sioux in relation to Dakota Access Pipeline, but the Trump administration has been, open season. They've doubled, tripled the amount of fracking, uranium mining, those types of things. And I would imagine a lot of those projects are also going, if not directly through native reservations, pretty close.
Absolutely. There's been a 4-year assault on environmental protection standards and regulations, the most recent of which is the White House unleashed a set of regulations that fundamentally overhaul our nation's landmark environmental law, which is NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. That essentially would gut the law's ability to study environmental effects of federally permitted projects like this one. We, on behalf of other clients, not the Standing Rock, we filed a lawsuit against those regulations. We plan to fight those vigorously in court, but I think that's a day one project for the next administration as well.
And lastly, just as an attorney, I'm sure this, is kind of old hand to you, but for people watching at home, it just seems like this issue, and many like it, it's just stuck in court, bounced around, 4, 5, 6 years. What has been your experience dealing with the tribe? Obviously, they're continuing to fight this tooth and nail. Just your observations about their tenacity in this fight.
Look, it is a huge honor for me to represent the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in this. They take the long view. They have never wavered. They've never discussed, backing down or cutting a deal. This is one of the poorer communities in America. They don't have a lot of resources, and they're fighting just to keep their community together. And yet they are, fully focused on fighting this pipeline as long as it takes. And so, me and the organization I work for, Earth Justice, we're going to partner with them until the job is done. And yeah, sometimes these fights take a long time. We've been in cases for 20 years, and sometimes that's what you need to do. What we're trying to do here is pretty unprecedented.
Mm-hmm. And one more. So the next step would be that the district court that originally ruled that the pipeline needed to shut down it's now being bounced back to them? And how long does the Army Corps have to respond in terms of when they're going to do the EIS?
Yeah, so as of now, both the appeals court and the district court at the same time, because the appeal will continue. But we have a hearing on Monday with the district court. I expect the judge will set a deadline for the Army Corps to announce its intentions, and then there'll be more proceedings. The tribe will likely ask the court for the injunction that the appeals court felt was necessary, and we'll see.
Thank you, Jan Hasselman, fighting the good fight on behalf of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. We will stay in touch.
Good to hear from you. Take care.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Status quo.
That was Jan Hasselman with Earth Justice, who's been representing Standing Rock Sioux Tribe for 4.5, 5 years. So we'll post that tomorrow as its own video and get it out there on social media so we can keep this important topic out there. So I want to show you real quick. A viewer sent me this. I think she sent it to me so I could show it. So hold on. Screen's going black. People starting to send in images of their swag. Ooh! Gosh darn it. It's crooked or sideways. Colin, where are you? How do I change this? Hold on. Rotate. Oh, I did it myself. Holy cow. Here is Mary Taylor. Just got her Status Coup shirt. Love it. Mary Taylor. Fashionista in the pandemic. Thank you, Mary, for sending us this picture. For other folks who are shopping to get their Status Coup swag, definitely email us. info@statuscoup.com. That's info@statuscoup.com. And send us images of you with Status Coup shirts. Send us images with you with Status Coup masks. That's right. The masks are flying off the virtual shelves. Once you get the mask, we want to see pictures of you in those Status Coup masks. Definitely send us info@statuscoup.com. If you get your Status Coup tote bag, Status Coup mugs, phone covers, beach towels, hoodies, pillowcase, workout pants, holy cow. I've gotten a couple requests for Status Coup thongs, but I don't think we're there yet. Maybe I'll do it, but I don't think we as a company are there yet. But Status Coup, here's the link for the mask. And you could shop around after you get that mask. This is another great way that we could support ourselves while we can't go in the field as much because of this pandemic. My final request before I go, and I will be live on Sunday. Here's my final request. I don't do this often. Right now, we are at 87,400 subscribers. So that is, we're less than 13,000 subscribers to 100,000. We have been up against severe suppression on YouTube to the point that even our own subscribers don't see our channel when we're live, don't see our videos when we're posted. Right now we're growing a little bit because of a certain video that, for whatever reason, now and then takes off in YouTube's algorithm. But overall, our growth has been stunted because YouTube, as we always tell you, floods people's channel with corporate outlets and hides channels like this. We don't get recommended. We don't show up in recommended feeds often. Unfortunately, we don't get a huge boost from other progressive outlets most of the time, which is a whole nother story. I haven't been invited on certain shows lately. So really, part of how we're going to grow is through the people we already have. So I always kind of say as a throwaway line, you know, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, whatever, subscribe. I actually mean it, because I think in this fucked up world we live in with Facebook and YouTube and Twitter suppressing channels, deprioritizing channels, full-on censoring channels.
You told a couple people in Portland you left your business card.
Yes, I gave away business cards in my recent trip to Maine. Really, word of mouth is another great way to spread the coup. So whomever is in your life, even if you could get us one new subscriber a day, that's huge, because honestly, I am here to tell you, there have been full-on weeks that we haven't grown any subscribers on YouTube because of the fuckery that they're doing. So if each one of you could make it a mission, if you can't support us financially, this is a great way to support us, to just alert people what's going on. You know, for example, I myself, and Status Quo, of course, does not want to flood other channels with our stuff. But for example, I got a perfect example. If you're a viewer who's watching another show live, I saw my Rational National friend, David Dole, was live before us. If you're watching and you're in that chat, feel free, spread the word. Hey, check out Status Quo. I'm not saying take them away from whatever show you're watching live, but spread the word. Hey, you should subscribe. Check out Status Quo. It's that former guy from TYT. A lot of people, you'd be surprised. I've been back for over 2 years. We still get people stumbling here being like, oh, Jordan, you're back. They have no idea that Status Quo even exists, including people that watch The Rational National, Secular Talk, Rising with Crystal Ball, Jamal Thomas, Lee Camp, Jimmy Dore, who am I forgetting? Humanist Report. There are people that watch those channels, are subscribed to those channels, who very much, I think, would like this channel, would want to subscribe, that don't know this exists. So definitely spread the coup all over the place if you can. I'm not saying spam other channels. We don't want that. But feel free, if it makes sense, if it's organic, to say, hey, you guys, if you like David, check out Status Quo. And spread it however you can. Because it really is going to, I don't want to be cliche, it's going to take a village in this in this current time where we have to deal with such obstacles that a lot of these channels with much larger platforms, frankly, didn't need to deal with. So, anyway. Thank you for watching. It's good to be back. I hope this was spirited. I've been demonetized 7 Ways to Sunday this hour and a half or however long. Oh, man, I've been live for almost 2 hours. But thank you for watching. Thank you so much for the GoFundMe donations. We just got another one from Carol, $50. So we're now less than, less than $7,000 to go for our ultimate goal. So we'll just keep trucking along on GoFundMe. Thank you, Carol. Thank you to the anonymous person who put us over the top, Seth, and all the other donors today. Thank you for the super chats. And thank you for subscribing to this channel. I will be live Sunday, probably between noon and 1 o'clock Eastern. So that's 9 and 10 Pacific. And also, if you have ideas, if you have a story, pitch, if you want us to know what's going on in your community, whatever, email us, info@statusquo.com. Thanks for watching. Peace.